Let's go ahead and start creating our great NFT marketplace. We can start by creating an empty folder on our desktop. I'm going to call it JSM underscore NFT underscore marketplace. Feel free to use your own name right there. Once you create an empty folder, you can also open an empty Visual Studio Code window or your own code editor of choice. Visual Studio Code has been the most popular code editor amongst developers for the past few years, so we're going to use it for this course as well. You can just go ahead and drag and drop your empty folder into an empty Visual Studio Code window. This is going to be our development environment. Visual Studio Code also provides you with a built-in terminal. This is going to be the place where we're going to run certain commands. Especially at the start, we'll have to run a lot of commands to set up our project. So we can start by running clear to clear our terminal, and then we can run node-v. This is going to give us the current active version of Node on our device. Right now, I'm running version 16, and Node is necessary to run all of these commands. So if you got any kind of version here, that's good. If for some reason you didn't get the version number, you can go to nodejs.org and download the recommended version for most users. As soon as you download it, you'll be able to easily install it, and then you can reload your Visual Studio Code. And if you run this command, you should be able to see your version number. That means that we can proceed. Then we can run the npx create-next-app and then /. This is going to initialize a Next.js application in our current directory. This process usually takes just about a minute, so I'm going to pause this video and then I'll be right back. Oh, actually it ran much sooner. As soon as I was done talking, it actually installed it. So in here, you'll be able to see certain files and folders that form our Next.js application. Before we go ahead and run it in the browser, we're going to make a few modifications to the code to make sure that everything is ready for our project. First of all, we're going to install all of the necessary dependencies that we're going to use throughout our project. Dependencies are listed inside of the package.json file. There are classic dependencies, which are going to be shipped to production, and also dev dependencies, such as ESLint, that are only running on our development environment. So, what I've decided to do for this course and for all future videos is to provide you with a list of all dependencies and dev dependencies, and most specifically, their versions as well. What I've noticed is that sometimes you can watch this video later than I've recorded it, and some packages are going to be different. For some reason, below this lecture, you'll be able to find a list of all dependencies and dev dependencies that we'll be using throughout this course. So simply copy them, paste them here, go to View and then Terminal, or just press Ctrl and then backtick, clear it, and then simply run npm install. This is going to make sure to install all the exact version of all the packages that we need. While the installation process is happening, let's go ahead and quickly explain what do these dependencies do. These dependencies, especially Hardhat, are used to create and test and deploy our blockchain smart contracts. OpenZeppelin/contracts is going to provide us some utility code to create our contracts. Axios is used to make API requests. Ethers is used to interact with blockchain smart contracts on the client side. IPFS HTTP client is going to allow us to actually deploy our NFTs. Next is, of course, Next.js. Next Themes is a really simple library that's going to allow us to switch between the light and dark mode. Then we, of course, have React, React DOM. React Dropzone is going to be the package that's going to allow us to upload files. And Web3 Modal is another library that we're going to use for the interaction with smart contracts on the client side. Amongst dev dependencies, we have AutoPrefixer, PostCSS, and Tailwind CSS, which are all dependencies required for the use of Tailwind CSS, a class utility library that's going to allow us to more easily create the styles of our applications only by writing classes. And finally, we have ESLint, a really important linting library that's going to make sure that we write clean and scalable code. We're going to set it up more professionally in the next lecture. I think that our dependencies have been installed, so if I open up the terminal again, you can see they are all installed. That's great. Now let's go ahead and explore the files and folders just a bit. This Git folder is most likely not going to be here for you by default. I'm going to show you later on how to get it. Node modules contains the code for all of our packages, and we have about 10 of them. You might think that's a lot, but trust me, for projects of this scale, some people and developers use dozens of packages. So we're good using only the packages for what we absolutely need. Then we have the pages folder, and in here we'll have all of our different routes. We're going to set up our file-based routing. I'm going to explain later on how Next.js handles these routes and pages. Next, we have a public folder that only contains the favicon and an SVG. Finally, we have our styles. And in this case, we won't need the home.module.css file, so I'm going to completely remove it. And then when it comes to globals.css file, we have some basic styling here, but below this lecture, you'll be able to find a modified and updated globals.css file, so you can simply paste it right here. This is not going to be any special logic, it's just going to be about 100 lines of boring CSS. These are some classes that I found being repeated quite often. For example, in most cases, we have to center something with flex. So instead of writing display flex, justify content flex start, and align item center, we're going to only write flex start center. So these are just some boring classes that are going to help speed up our development workflow. We also have some icons, checkboxes, but nothing major. Generally, setting up the base styles. We can also see that we're importing some Tailwind utilities here, such as base, components, and utilities. While we're here, we can continue setting up Tailwind to its full potential. To set up Tailwind, you can go to the link that's going to be below this lecture as well, and that is Tailwind CSS docs guides Next.js. This is going to be an installation guide of Tailwind with Next.js. So first things first, we have to create our project. We've already done that. Then we have to install Tailwind CSS, which we already have done by installing all of the dependencies, but we haven't initialized our Tailwind project. So let's go ahead and copy npx Tailwind CSS init-b. Let's open up our terminal and simply paste that command right here. You'll be able to see that that created two new files, post CSS, as well as the Tailwind config file. It is incredibly important to set up our entire development environment properly so that our future development flows smoothly. For that reason, below this lecture, there's going to be one more file, which is the updated tailwind.config.js. You can simply paste it, and in here, we updated some screen sizes, Z indexes, built-in classes, and generally just added some colors that we're going to use throughout our project. Again, I know we've copied quite a few files, but this is mainly setup, not a single line of functionality or JSX. Don't worry, we're going to code everything together as we go on. Now that we're done with all of the setup files, we can go ahead and close the active files. You can do that by clicking this X right here on each file, or by holding Control or Command and then pressing W. This is going to make sure to close the tabs. Now we can finally go to Pages and then index.js. In here, we have some default code that Next.js prepared for us, but we no longer have the home module styles, so we can remove that and we can leave everything else and see if it's going to run in our browser. So let's go ahead and open up the terminal and run npm run dev. Opposed to React, the command for running Next.js applications is npm run dev. Then you can hold Control or Command and click localhost 3000. And right away, you'll be able to see custom Next.js's error handling window. Maybe that's inconvenient, but actually it is convenient. In this course, I want to teach you how to solve every single error that comes along. So no errors are going to be skipped, and I'm going to teach you how to debug problems on your own. The first error is simple. We remove the styles, so we simply cannot use them. So let's go ahead and remove everything that's inside of this return. There we go. And simply return a div that's going to have an h1. We can also go to Tailwind, and we've done these steps, but we can just copy this h1 here To check if Tailwind works, we can go back, paste this H1 right here, indent it properly, remove these imports as they're not being used, and save. In here, we're using Tailwind's utility classes, such as Text3XL to make it larger, font bold, and underline. Let's go ahead and go back to our application. And if you reload the page, you should be able to see a big hello world that's bold and underlined. This means that we've successfully set up our entire application, including Tailwind. And that was it for our initial project setup lecture. In the next lecture, I'm going to teach you how to professionally set up ESLint, a linter that's going to help you write more scalable and professional code. So let's get to it right away.